I think my numbers are correct here, but you are at 75 number one songs. Is that the right number, or have you hit 76?
Well, not to be counted. I hit 77 this week. We got really lucky. We had a couple in a row that are just, again, these are overwhelming, blessings, but we had a couple Morgan number ones there in a row, one with Post
Yep.
Malone, which is huge. And then Cowgirls with my boy Ernest went number
Hmm.
one. Yet, this current week we're
Right.
in. And so that's his first number one as an artist. So we had to kind of celebrate that a little bit, and that's exciting.
Welcome, everybody, to the Studio 101 Recording Podcast. My name is Brad Phillips, your host, and today we are here with my friend, Mr. Ashley Gorley. Ashley, great to have you, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hey. Yeah, man. Of
How's things
course.
going in Nashville?
Oh man, it's rocking. It's since you were here, it's transformed a little bit. But yeah, it's going very well, very busy. But good times. It's hot, but
Yeah,
not too
man.
bad.
So you guys have had a full summer so far, traveling and kids involved in a bunch of stuff. So you've been all over the place this summer already, right?
Yeah. Trying to fit in a few sessions here and there around travel baseball and hanging out with my daughter and son out. She was in LA, he was in Wyoming. It's just a lot of jet setting
Yeah,
around.
nice. So just a little backstory, man. I guess we were roommates in college for like what, 2 or 3 years, something like that. Look,
Yeah, for at least one. I mean, I was all over. I think I was just sleeping on people's couches for a while with you and Jimmy and some people. I don't even
yeah,
remember. All that stuff is such a blur. My memory is so
yeah,
bad. It's like people don't believe me, but it's really bad. But yeah, I know that we were definitely in the crew together from the
yeah,
beginning,
man.
trying to figure this thing out together a little bit.
Yeah.
So you were the talented one,
N-
and we were
n-
like, shoot, we can't
no,
do that. What are we
no, no,
gonna
no,
do?
no, not true.
You know,
Not true.
back in the day for sure. I couldn't play anything. I couldn't even play guitar when I moved to
It's
Nashville.
it
Still can
it's
barely
funny.
do
I
it.
still have vivid memories of you at Belmont. Hanging out in the practice rooms at the piano. You're just
Oh
jamming out
yeah,
on the pianos at the practice room at Belmont. Uh,
dude, finding total strangers, being like, "Hey, what you working on?" I mean, it,
mm.
it was literally like a big, you know, e-harmony situation where you just kind of, I didn't know anybody in the state of Tennessee. I didn't know anybody from the school. I mean, I was completely on my own planet, so I was just like, all right, I have no idea how this works,
Yeah.
but I love music and I'm interested in how these people are creating this or what's going on. So I was just lurking around there, and I definitely, I mean, I co-wrote some songs, ended up getting recorded. I mean, nothing big, but in those writing rooms a couple
Yeah,
times, so it was
for
wild.
sure.
Yeah.
I guess me and you had one famous song that we wrote, and then that was it. Like we didn't really write anything else after that. Infamous.
Well, no, I don't even know. Yeah. I know that one. Yeah, that was when we were both trying to figure it out and learn, but it was good. I think, didn't you play it out or something at a
Yeah, man.
showcase?
Yep. The Belmont
Yeah.
Country.
Moment of
Yeah,
truth there.
Belmont Country Showcase, man. Shout out
Come
to
on,
Belmont
man. Yeah.
University. But it's like
Oh, for sure. I'm going there today.
nice. Well, it's like at Belmont. I've had 100 conversations about Belmont over the years with students and people who are wanting to go there, in my opinion, and all those things about the program. And it's like, just like you said earlier, you and I both showed up to Nashville. I had never been away from home or anything like that before. So then we show up to Belmont and we're like,
Oh, me neither. Not on an interstate, I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
think. I think that was my first drive on an
yeah, for
interstate.
real. And you show up in this big, huge town, and I had never lived in the city, man. I'm a country guy, Uh,
Oh, me too. Me too, for sure. Yeah.
so figuring out how to live in the big city and then we live in right at the edge of Music Row, with every label known to mankind, every publishing company known to mankind was just right there at the front steps of the mansion. So,
Oh yeah, super inspiring. It was that location is insane.
mhm.
That's such a big advantage for that school. But yeah, for sure. That's how. I mean, I didn't know. Definitely shout out to Belmont. I did not understand how anything
Mhm.
worked. And at the time, there was no. Now there's been a songwriting major for 10
Right.
years, which I don't even think I would have majored in that. I didn't even know that's what I was going to do. So, not that it would have changed my path too much, but it's wild how much it's changed. It is insanely nice over there, and they're getting it dialed in, for
Yeah, it's
sure over there.
fantastic. We've had, I'm here in the Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina area. So I have students and intern people who have come through the studio here and ended up actually in the songwriting program there at Belmont. And um, like you said, that particular degree wasn't available when we were there. It was kind of just all lumped into the music
No.
business program, and like with my side of engineering, you could emphasize in engineering, or you could emphasize in management or record company operations, whatever it was,
Yeah. Publishing. I did publishing, which is awesome.
which played in your favor, obviously. Uh,
Oh,
you
for
know,
sure. No, once I figured out what publishing and writing and that system and A&R, that was my, it takes a minute to figure out what you're going to, I knew I wasn't going to be a singer, didn't want to be an artist at all. Don't have those talents. But yeah, as far as my stuff, it was just like, okay, maybe I'll work at a label. I kind of tried engineering, and I think that was the worst grade I've ever gotten in, including kindergarten through college. That tied with
yeah,
piano, which is pretty
yeah,
interesting.
because
Piano, I had to drop it.
yeah, and now piano is your thing, right? That's when you play out live, kind of
Oh
everything.
yeah, it was already. I was just like, I can't read music, so that the guy didn't like that I wasn't willing to learn. So I was like, it's too late,
Yeah,
bro. I've already learned how to do this my own
yeah,
way. So I can't go back now. So yeah, I had to drop that
yeah. I
one.
hear you, man. So like we all finished Belmont around 1999. What was the progression of when you finished Belmont? How long did it take you to kind of land your first pub deal? What was the time frame there?
Well, I mean, the thing that I did, and I think you did some of this, but I mean, I got some kind of internship award. I wore out internships so much. I had 7 different internships, some at the same time. And I was just, that for me, for whatever reason, I bought into that system. Like, hey, I want to learn. It's like going to a country to learn to speak the language. I was like, I'm diving in here. I'm going to pretend like I know what I'm doing
Yep.
and see if anybody can, you know, will believe me. So yeah, I did a lot of internships, and then, honestly, it's a great Belmont kind of story. There's a guy that lived in our dorm. Probably the dorm probably isn't there anymore. Definitely doesn't look the same if it's
Yeah.
still there. But and he wanted to be, he found his way into like creative management.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like A&R, like signing writers and recognizing when people were good at writing songs. And we just happened to be buddies. And for whatever reason, he really, I was making up. I probably wrote 5 or 10 songs. C minuses at best. The whole time I was there, I ended up writing 10 country songs and being like, well, here, dude, I mean, I guess you can listen to these. I'm sorry in advance. And, as it progressed, then he was just like, man, you really do have something there. There's something about the catchiness or some different things you're doing. I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't, I guess. But like, back then he definitely, Corey Gearman, who's still, he had a great career in music and awesome dude. I still see him time to time, but he kind of believed in me, which is really all it takes. It doesn't even matter if the person's lying or
Yeah.
not. They believe you. They tell you you're
Yeah.
good. It's like all we want to know is one person say you're good. You can make it
Yeah.
up. And so I was like, well, okay, let me see what's going on. I ended up getting a writing deal. I was interning. Thankfully, I interned my way into a paid position that I started as soon as we graduated. You know what I mean? Like the next
Okay.
week, that I was getting paid. That was, I mean, $10 an hour, which to me was
Uh,
like
$1
five hundred
million.
thousand dollars a
Yeah.
year.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, in my head. So I was like, I'm crushing this, and I was in the tape room, which is where songs are. I was the person that would take the demos in, organize them, and then when they had a pitch meeting, I would listen through to the songs and put them on CDs at the
Yeah, man.
time. At least I'm not that old to where it wasn't
Yeah.
cassettes, even though it's called the
Right.
tape room. But it was DATs to CDs, and back then you would listen to the whole song. So I love that. I hate that that's not the way anymore. It's way more efficient now. But like if I made a 5 song pitch CD, if they had a meeting with Tony Brown for George Strait, I would hear all 5 of those
Hmm.
songs, and I would hear all the songs in the catalog, and I would always keep a little notebook of like, if this was up to me, I would play these, or I would do this, or I wonder why they're playing this one, or why did they take that? Why did they record that? And that's kind of where the tape room music, my publishing
Yeah.
company name came from, is just trying to always have a little bit of old school mentality, listening to the full song, keeping the dream
For
alive, the
sure.
magic, and pitching songs and being like, hey, I think these are the best songs. What do you think? And so we still try to meet with our writers, a
Hmm.
lot face to face, one on one, really give input. Like the place where I interned, Hamstein Music was big on input and critiquing, the songs and trying to nurture the writers. I was like, I want to do that. I don't even know which side. I may be the person publishing or maybe the person writing. And finally I was like, I want to do both
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
And then I got a writing deal that fall. So probably 6 to 9 months after
With
graduating. And it was like signing a first round draft pick deal for me. And it was the cheapest, it was terrible, but it was way enough,
yeah.
back then in the old Nashville to make
Yeah. Well, that
rent.
was with Hamstein, right? That was your first pub deal.
No. I actually signed with a place called Broadvision where Corey, coming back to
Okay.
him, he graduated. He was a year older than me. So he was at this place and he was like, dude, come play us some songs. We're looking for new writers. I'm like, no
Yeah.
way. And then he offered me a deal. I mean, I was going to take it if it was for a free pizza a week. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Cause that's how I always looked at it. It's like, and I had to work a little bit on the side, like back then,
Mm.
$20,000 a year was a really good draw.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if you can,
No.
I don't know where you'd
Yeah. I don't
live
know.
for that or what you'd eat. But back then it got it done. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I was in an apartment out by the airport and we made it happen. And I'd work at a trucking company in the mornings and I'd work at Ronstadt temporary staffing and try to sweep warehouses, from 6 a.m. to session
Yeah.
time. You know what I mean? And then I'd write at night. I mean, it's just kind of making it happen. I love that phase, even though it sounds
Yeah.
terrible. That was a really fun
No,
time.
I'm in complete agreement, man, because when we were there at Belmont, the internship program was like a huge part of building like who we were as, people in the music industry.
Oh, still
And I
is. Yeah.
had, I still to this very day, a good friend of mine, Chris Latham, was running the studio at EMI Publishing. I don't know if you remember, it's down in the basement. It's like the dungeon down there.
I do. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh,
I
yeah.
spent I
Oh,
spent
yeah.
4 years with Chris, and still to this very day talk to him and text him almost every week about what's going on in the
Oh,
engineering
that's
world
awesome.
and that stuff. And it's all
Cool.
about networking and relationships anyway. So that part of it is, I think what Belmont does an excellent job of is connecting people with that internship network type stuff. So, but
Oh yeah, there's good ones, there's bad ones. I mean, I got that deal and got the company folded. It was a new company, and about a year and a half in, right after my first option, it started kind of coming apart at the seams. Paying, they redid a big building. That made a few financial decisions that probably it was their first time in
yeah,
publishing, so publishing is a tough business, and they had to shut it down. And because of Belmont, I knew enough about contracts, and copyright law and deals where I was able to take some songs out of that deal
yeah,
with me. And I was out of a deal for about 9 months and I was able to bring a catalog in, a mini catalog,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and sell it for a couple bucks to Combustion Music, who is another startup publishing
Hmm.
company. And I had so many songs in my pocket already that was really my only appeal. I mean, I wasn't good, but I came in with like 50 songs,
Yeah,
demoed and ready to go. And they're like, well, shoot, this would be a good place to start. None of them were hits, but, I had a great relationship with Falcon and Chris Farron, and Kenley Flynn at the time was over there too. But I wrote somehow with that company. There were some other partners along the way, but for probably 12 years,
right.
or 10, something like
Yeah,
that. Really fun. And I hung out with Chris, a few months ago, went on a trip with him.
yeah.
So all good, still tight. Learned a lot from them and him, and I loved that place and that deal. And then they, I've kind of springboarded on to different deals and different things,
Right.
to current day. But that was a great place. Got a lot of attention. Got a lot of songs demoed. Figured out what was good, what was great, what was terrible, and I was able to get honest about that, and they were great at that. So I'm very very thankful for that whole
Yeah,
stretch.
man. And just to interject this, when a lot of people ask me about you, say, "Hey, do you know Ashley?" I was like, "Yeah." The thing that I always tell people about you, man, specifically, is the fact of how you were persistent about educating yourself about publishing and how to get things done, how to go about the
Oh
right
yeah,
way. And then, but it's the hustle part, man, that I tell people about all the time. It's like you worked your freaking butt off to get to where
yeah,
you are. And it's not, for people who want to do what you're doing and want to be where you are, there's something that they don't understand about how hard you had to hustle to do what you're doing. And still to this very day, you're out there working your butt off and making it happen every day. And that's a testament to you
yeah.
personally, man. And I love that about you, and I know that about you, and
No,
a lot of
thanks.
people don't know that about you. But like the way that you've had to work and go in and craft songs and be like, this song sucks. I'm trashing this. This is not good,
Yeah,
And then
daily. Yeah,
figuring out things that work and just working the process is great.
yeah. It is a very. I tell people that a lot. I'm a little bit of an anomaly, so there's not a ton of space for writers that aren't artists, singers, producers, connected to anybody at all in an artist camp or anything like that. But I mean, just thank God I've been able to try enough weird stuff that's clicked occasionally with enough
Yeah,
people. And I've been able to be in several camps and work with pretty much anybody I'd ever wanted to. It's an insane situation. Now, keep in mind, this is the first time I had a hit on the radio was 11 years after I moved to Nashville, 7 years after college.
yeah,
So it's not like it was a quick dream trip there.
Yeah.
I mean, we had 2 kids and married, and
Yeah.
it was one of those
Yeah, I
situations.
know. And one of the
But I love all that. That stuff was really
Yeah, and I
fun.
mean, at one point, this is hilarious to me. Just the stuff that's coming to mind. It's um, like, we got married, and then you guys got married the year later. I came up to Kentucky to be in the wedding, and at one point, you guys, this is how awesome that this stuff is to me. Like, you guys are coming through to Myrtle Beach. You guys crash at our house for like a night. And this is when nobody knows it. Nobody
Oh
knows
yeah,
any of us. We're just like trying to figure it out.
yeah,
But
yeah.
this is the part that I love about like the progression of life and careers and all those things. Like, yeah, people, we're just regular people, man. It's like, we got married, had kids, did all the things, and
Oh
even
yeah.
before you had your first number one. So that's the
Yeah, oh yeah.
uh,
No, and yeah, it doesn't make it easier. But yeah, that trip to Myrtle Beach, I was trying to take a vacation with my wife, so I signed up for some timeshare presentation, and we still had to crash at your place. We had to, I mean, we drove 10 hours to this not even great hotel, just to hear a presentation so we could have somewhere to sleep near a beach for like,
yeah,
2 nights or something like that. So, but hey, you got to do what
yeah.
you got to do. That's the thing. You can always figure out a way,
Mhm.
to have a little bit of fun, even if it's
For
free or
sure.
cheap.
I love that part. I love that part of everybody's story though, man. So what was tell me about your first number one. What was that like? How I don't know. What's the feeling? What's the what all comes along with having a first number one?
Oh man. Well, this is going to make me sound old, but I had my first number one exactly. Let me check my math skills here. Uh, exactly 18 years yesterday,
Wow.
because it was my daughter's birthday yesterday, and it went number one when the day she turned 2. I remember that. So yeah, that was again, it dates me a little bit, but it was Carrie Underwood's song "Don't Forget to Remember Me." It was actually about a kid growing up and a daughter leaving. Back then, she was 2, so I was just kind of like riffing on that. I didn't have experience in
Yeah.
that, and it's wild, man. Since then, she's gone back and sang that song when she was 18 or 19 at a Bluebird Round with me or something like that. It's been some special moments. So it was just kind of happenstance that's what that subject matter of that first hit was, but it's always been a cool thing, that it came back around. And for Carrie to win Idol and to get her second single, I mean, there was no better cut to get right then. I can't believe that it happened,
Yeah,
actually.
no, and that's the thing that I was saying earlier. It's like, I mean, I feel like you were watching Carrie Underwood kind of happen on American Idol, and you were like, I'm fixing to
Oh,
jump
yeah.
in.
Live
I'm
TV,
about
baby.
to jump in and see if I can get it right with Carrie. And that's the thing that you have to, as a writer and all this stuff. I think you have to be aware of, like, kind of what's happening. But you've told me before, you're a part of like trying to develop like what's coming, like what's the next thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You always have to educated guess your way to what somebody wants to do next. I tell writers that all the time. That's usually the number one mistake of writers is they go, "Let me emulate what's on the radio," or "Let me do something for this artist." And since he sounded like this last time, let's sound like that again. And that's usually number one mistake. Even that I tell our writers and stuff is like, "Okay, well, you kind of did that already. So what's next?" Now with Carrie, she hadn't done anything yet. It was a total different
yeah,
scenario, and I was just thankful that she the Nashville magic is that artists will record songs if they love them, even if they've never met
hmm
you, have any idea who you are, never had a hit before. That still happens. It's happened recently.
yeah,
Brand new writers. So that was a situation. And yeah, I really would love to get her right with her back on that first album. Obviously, I'd never even met her. And so getting that to go number one, I mean, I still had to scrap and beg, and Kelly Lovelace, who I wrote that
yeah,
song with, really stepped in and stood up for me when it came time and she was working on the next album. I still had no time, booked with her. I couldn't get in because I'd only had that one, fluke hit or whatever. And Kelly really championed me and said, like, "Hey, if you'll get this guy in there, he's new, but he's really good, and we can get number one if we get one day." And we got one day with
yeah.
her, and ended up writing All American Girl, which so he stuck his neck out, and we thankfully came through with another number one on that one day we had. But again, you got to make the most of the time you got. We came in prepped, had ideas ready. It was
Mm,
so nerve wracking, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, everything she sings sounds like magic.
yeah,
So why am I even here?" But just making your way through those artist rights or like any rights, people don't understand the pressure of performing, not in front of a crowd, but coming in and having to just yell out random things that people think are awesome. I still sometimes sit in the car for 10, 15 minutes before I go in to try to hype myself up. Like that doesn't go
yeah,
away. It's not as bad as getting on stage or having to sing or something like that, which is terrifying. But even a session is very, very it's a very unguarded situation.
Yeah.
So it can be
Yeah,
freaky.
man. And like to me, guys who write incredible songs such as yourself, and Nashville's full of incredible writers. It's like when you have an artist like Carrie Underwood, and you give her a lyric that she completely resonates with, and you listen to the song, and you can see Carrie
Yeah.
Underwood's face. You know what I mean? Like it super resonates with her and where she's
Oh yeah,
at.
yeah.
So,
It's wild,
uh,
but it's also really tough. If you're writing a song with Carrie, Chris Stapleton, Morgan Wallen, there's so many insane singers, Nate Smith, and it's hard. You have to be able to. A lot of times I'll be like, okay, let me sing it. So I'll sing the scratch vocal, what we call it, when it goes
mhm.
down. If it still sounds like a hit when I'm singing it, it may be a hit. If it sounds like a hit when they're singing it, everything
Yeah,
does, So I've always told people that too, is like, you need to have a common person be able to sing this so the whole crowd can sing along.
yeah,
Some artists there's so many good singers out there that, I know it sounds crazy, but that's my job a lot of times is to get something sticky enough to be repeatable, to get a resonating lyric. That's all I can bring to the table, is melody and lyric and maybe some musical direction here and
yeah,
there, and vibes and stuff like that, and trying crazy stuff. So that I've just learned to be very, um, confident in that, whether I think I really have it or not, in a room, and just having a sense for what thing is better than another thing. It's weird because that's the skill set. I tell people at the end of the day, I'm trying to write somebody's favorite song, and I feel like I know sometimes when something is the right way to go with a note or melody or a lyric, and there's nothing. I'm not qualified to do that. It's not like I have a degree in that or
yeah,
something, and so it's a really subjective thing. But that's our job, is to get something that you think is one notch above everything else that this person could record, and have it really resonate with them for some
yeah,
reason, whether it's melody, lyric, groove, emotion,
for
whatever it
sure.
is.
So, man, I think my numbers are correct here, but you are at 75 number one songs. Is that the right number, or have you hit 76?
Well, not to be counted. I hit 77 this week.
Okay.
We got really lucky. We had a couple in a row that are just, again, these are overwhelming blessings, but we had a couple Morgan number ones there in a row, one with Post
Yeah.
Malone, which is huge. And then Cowgirls with my boy Ernest went number
Hmm.
one. Yet, this current week we're
Right.
in. And so that's his first number one as an artist. So we had to kind of celebrate that a little bit, and that's
Fa-
exciting. I was with him yesterday, so it was fun to talk about.
Fantastic. Tell me, well, I want to know, you are also known. I guess I'll preface it with this. You've also been known over the years to
Uh-oh.
go with, uh, to go to LA, to go to New York. You've been known to like cross some boundaries
Yeah.
on purpose because your
Yeah,
background coming into Belmont. I mean, you were a hip hop R&B dude coming into Nashville. I mean, big
for
time.
sure.
And that's what probably a lot of people don't know that about you, but like that was your groove, man, coming into Belmont in
Oh, absolutely.
99. So it's like you
Yeah.
you were able to carry over and cross over that background that you had into your writing, and sort of cross some boundaries and barriers that hadn't been done before. So we can take the recent your
Mhm.
recent song with Post Malone. It's like, who else is doing that in Nashville? I mean, there's not really anybody else that's doing that in Nashville at the moment. What was that process like? I mean, so is Post Malone coming to you guys going, "Hey man, I want to write a song with Ashley," or are you going to him saying, "Hey, I'd love to get a
I
co-write"?
wish.
Like, what?
Yeah,
How does it
neither.
work?
I mean, that's the thing. And just to touch on that first thing, I definitely, I did not know this skill set would actually be thriving right now. But like growing up in the country, doing all the country stuff, field parties, helping on a farm, small town stuff, that was the lifestyle. And we all listened to rap back then. It was just that certain class in high
Uh-huh.
school. And every now and then somebody would throw out a Garth Brooks or Randy Travis song, and I'll be like, oh, that's pretty cool. But I was just into crazier phrasings and pop melodies. I loved pop songs that were just huge. I listened to countdowns and I always had pop sensibilities and made beats and R&B and
Yeah,
rap, and it was just
yeah,
fun. But country woven in there, and now like all those skills are pretty useful, for the past few years, because country's got more melodic and more rhythmic, and it can definitely, as everybody can tell now on the chart, take chances and be kind of different.
yeah,
So, I mean, Post Malone was a bucket list thing for me. It's not like he knew who I was or cared, or it's not like, what I mean? I never even thought that could ever happen. But there's a guy, Charlie Handsome, that I've had, 8 Morgan hits with now, or 7 or 8, or some crazy
hmm,
number. And we just kind of hit it off. I've always, even on those trips to LA, New York, Miami, wherever, it's not like I scored a bunch of big Justin Bieber number ones or any kind of pop stuff, but I would always I would always learn something from those
Yeah.
trips, and I would be in such an uncomfortable situation. You know, if I'm in an all hip hop session or I'm in a rock session or a pop session aiming at, you know, whoever it is at the time, or working with Charlie Puth or getting in with these, you know, different minded pop people, even if nothing came out of it, you know, on the chart, it would always be a learning process. Be like, oh, this person really does this, or there's such a concentration there on
Yeah.
melody, and there's so much competition on melodies that I really took that back with me and tried to put in more effort, you know, on melodies, which country didn't really do way back in the day. It was a very storytelling lyric thing. And there wasn't that much thought to the melodies. There's some great melodies, you know, back in
Yeah.
the day, but it was just, you know, kind of different than it's been the last few years. So with Post, I mean, that's a great, um, again, unexpected turn, you know, in his career. Everybody's loving country right now. Post, I think, is different than like trying to do a cool one-off, you know, cowboy vibe. It's more like, and, you know, everybody, you could totally have an authentic, you know, country, background, and you want to do a country album. So I don't blame anybody, for that trend kind of taking off, but he's actually, you know, lives in Utah, drives four-wheelers, grew up in Texas. I mean, there's some country things about him. And I'll tell you this, there's no artist I've been in the studio with that knows old country music more than he does.
Yeah.
He's
I've
a
heard that.
jukebox. Like I feel like I know music. I'm like such a, you know, student of music, and he'll be talking about some, you know, live recording of a Johnny Cash thing here, a Hank Senior, you know, album cut that I've never heard. It was really interesting. So he really wanted to do it, and you could tell, that he really wanted to go all the way and go all in on this, and it wasn't a one-off situation. But anyway, Charlie, who, came from more of the hip hop world, he and I, just really hit it off a few years ago because his vibes were different than anything I'd heard. They definitely, you know, he was having some success in the rap world. And Morgan and he really hit it off, and Ernest. And so we kind of had a little crew of some of the big loud writers, and he and I just ended up writing a ton of songs because the vibes are so interesting and they inspired different kinds of songs and the stuff, that I'd been doing. And so, Morgan loves his sounds. They were different. And so we're all on the same page there and just had a good run there. So, Charlie worked on the first Post album, like Go Flex, and back in the day of, like, you know, back in Stony Land and all that stuff. And they were tight, and I think they remained friends. Charlie didn't work on a few albums there since then just because things happened, but it almost came back around full circle, and they reached out to Charlie, for this project. So I really do owe it to him that I'm on there. I didn't have Post's number or that camp. And so it was literally a bunch of Nashville writers hoping for the chance to borderline audition to just go in for a few hours and see if it clicked or not. So you talk about stressful, you know, and I wasn't in that first couple batches of guys, you know, so I remember going over there, you know, one night at 10 p.m., you know, or maybe 10:30 p.m. or something like that. And we hit it off, and I left there at 11:15 a.m. and we wrote that whole time. And I should never do that again. My body about gave out. You know, he's a nocturnal dude. So he writes late at night. Nobody's calling your phone. It's like you're on another planet. You know, we're just in there creating. And we just hit it off. He sent me one of the nicest texts any artist I've ever written with sent, you know, that next day, and said I was welcome back, you know, for a ton of say. He wanted me to be one of the, you know, regulars coming through there, which that made my day probably more than having a hit or anything. And so anyway, but in that camp, you know, there's just crazy situations. There's a lot of people in there. Louis Bell, definitely one of the most talented producers, you know, in the pop world. So he was another, you know, bucket list thing, you know, dream co-write for me. And both these guys were just so nice and funny, and we're on there making stupid eighth grader jokes, and just, we all just kind of fit, you know, I mean, y'all just become kids when you have the right co-writers. It just feels fun. And I really owe it to Post too. That whole situation really, you know, you can get burnt out as a writer, but he definitely like sparked another, you know, gave me something else to kind of aim at and try for. There's some old school country stuff on there. It's definitely not, you know, poppy, or it has no, you know, drum machine stuff in it or anything like that. It's very cut with a band, very Nashville. That album comes out next month, and I'm very, very proud to have a few songs on there. So that was great. And I had some help, just came from one day of trying random stuff. That's where it all came from. You know, we were doing some old school country stuff. Morgan was there. There's only a few hours there where it all overlapped, where it was me, Morgan, and Ernest, all there at the same time with Charlie and Chandler and Lewis and Post. So, you know, 6-7 people in a room is a lot of people. And usually that almost is very, very difficult. We got Charlie was playing a track, and Lewis was working on stuff, and Post was saying stuff. We just got in one of those rhythms where, Charlie played a vibe that was really cool. Kind of what you hear on the radio right now, a little bit different, but just kind of set the tone. And we hadn't been writing to tracks at all. And it was a very basic track, just a cool guitar part and a really good, you know, groove going with it. And I don't know, it was not wasn't my title, but so one of those other guys, whether it was Chandler or Ernest or whoever had this, I had some help and just started kind of trying to scat out the rhythms. And it was a bunch of, gibberish. If anybody could, see these sessions, we all sound like we're crazy. Just kind of yelling out different rhythms and words. And that one just kind of happened there in like, maybe an hour and a half. So once we got our head wrapped around that idea and just started yelling out those chorus flows and melodies, it just felt really good. Post kind of laid down, some vocals. Morgan did the same thing. It was just a demo, but it was just like, man, this would be awesome. If this gets finished and sounds right, to have those two on a song would be great. And they just made it sound amazing. Lewis and Charlie just really knocked that out of the park. One of the best sounding records I've been on, that I've heard on the radio. So that's kind of how that happened. Now, we thought that was a good combo, and I didn't think it was going to fail by any means. But I did not know that would be my first, global Billboard number one, or debut number one on the Hot 100, go number one on pop radio and country radio, and a couple other charts creeping up. So that song has been a one of a kind, little vibe, and I'm just excited I was there that day. That's the thing, is like you said, kind of working hard, going and writing even if you don't feel like it sometimes. Not being a workaholic, not trying to work all through the weekend every night. I don't do that, but I get really excited if there's a scenario that could be big. Then I get really into that. I get really fired up, and that's what that was. So I'm just glad we came out with
for
that.
sure. And I have writers that come through the studio here a lot of times haven't been in the sort of a Nashville writing session, and I snuck in with you guys at Big Loud one day and kind of got a peek at what you guys are doing, on a daily basis. And the process, the process is it's actually a lot different to me than, 15, 16 years ago, of a couple guys sitting in a writing room. Now I guess talk through a little bit about maybe having a track guy in the room with you, like how it's a little bit different.
Yeah. Well, I've always been different, and some people like it and some people don't. Like, I can't take quiet. It makes me nervous. So like when I'm writing in there with like a genius lyricist that's like just thinking of, verse lyrics, and he's writing it in a notebook, that freaks me out. You know what I mean? So I'm always an over talker, and I'm like, what if it did this? What if it did this? And, several years ago, once I was like, hey, what have I got to lose? You know what I mean? Nobody's videoing this. Nobody's hearing these terrible melodies I'm auditioning. As long as we land on the right one, then we'll be fine. So I just became more of a vocal writer. Growing up listening to, a lot of, hip hop stuff and those flows. I do like to, I'm not freestyling, I'm not, Eminem or Kendrick or anybody by any means, not a rapper, but I do like to have the mic on and just try to record stuff and catch magic, and I know we can always go back and iron out the idea and the, some of the lyrics and stuff like that. So, most times with me, the song is kind of just yelled out in like a 10, 15 minute span, so, and guitars, to me, guitars always felt boxed in. I'm a student of a lot of melodic stuff, whether it's, Babyface or Max Martin and the Swedes, and just how important those melodies are to make them catchy and interesting. And so I always approach songs like that, that the melody can't be too pop and lyric can't be too country. And if you throw all that together, then some magic happens. And so, having somebody in there to create a vibe, for me, it just frees up my brain a little bit. So instead of me just playing piano chords or a guitar chords, as soon as you strum one chord on the guitar, you're boxed into that key, that chord, that vibe a little bit. And so early on, I was one of the weirdos that, now I show up with nothing. I just yell out stuff into the room. There's a vibe going. But I really liked when there was like a loop or something to where I'm not worried about playing or anything like that. And there just seems to be more freedom when a producer writer is there that can have a vibe not completely finished out, but just enough of a lick and a little bass line and chords. That's what Charlie's great at. I mean, other, Ben Johnson, Jesse Frazier, Zach Crowell, there's tons of people, even some of my writers, that are so good at kind of setting the tone. And if we don't like that tone, they'll try another one. They have stuff prepped and ready. That's kind of a whole lane of writers. It has been for several years. Krista Stefano, I remember one of my best friends that he moved here from LA, and we wrote a song called Good Girl with Carrie Underwood. It was like our first time writing with her ever in LA. And just the fact that he could lay down a bunch of parts real quick and play stuff, was really motivating and really fun. And I'd written in pop sessions where that was the case. And then slowly but surely Nashville just started, turning that way. I mean, there's still sessions I have with you don't have to have that going on. But for me, it's honestly at this point just more fun. So yesterday, if I'm a Big Loud and Charlie's playing weird stuff and I'm trying to think of things you wouldn't expect to say over it, and two or three of us are in there just kind of scatting stuff. And when somebody hit something that sounds cool, be like, oh, what was that? Record that. And then, it's really, really messy,
Yeah. Yeah.
honestly. And it drives some, especially old school writers, crazy because it's just not, it's not the pro way they're probably used to, but it's just fun. So it makes it feel like we're all just hanging out in a dorm room, yelling out cool, stuff and playing
Yeah.
riffs. But I do love the role of somebody setting the tone as that producer, especially when it's a project like Post, because they're going to they're actually doing the album. So, whatever we start with, they'll build a band on top of that and do things later on, but we can get the heart of the song. And it's just fun to listen through the vibes. It just kicks your brain around. Again, it's not always necessary. I've had hits, even recently where that wasn't the case at all. There's no track going or vibe or anything. You just sit down and play your instruments and sing. But yeah, I like mixing it up. I like a lot of variety.
Yeah, for sure. So what's the percentage of like rights that you have where, the track from the writing session makes the record? That's kind of a norm? Is that a norm these days, or basically?
It's starting to be a norm. Yeah. Or, I mean, it depends on the producer of the album. They may want to redo it from scratch, so it's their production. But more times than not now, people will send the stems or files. I'm not an engineer like you. So whatever they do, they send magical things, basically what we used in the demo session, they'll send that over. And then the producer, if it's somebody different, will then add, tighten it up, make it sound better, add some instrumental parts, or sometimes they just throw that away and make their own track. You know what I mean? But a lot of the stuff, especially with Charlie and some of those guys, we feel like we're writing the record in the room, and then somebody like Joey will come in and take it and build on it and make it better or whatever the situation is. But it's kind of every kind of way. I mean, my job is done when I think the song is as good as it can be. And then I literally have to go hands off because I can be really picky on production and the sound of stuff and everything. I've kind of removed myself from being a producer in that sense and finishing out a record or something. That's so hard for me to do, for me to ever say it's finished. But I have no problem saying like, all right, it's up to y'all now. Go kill it. That song's good.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll usually sing my terrible scratch vocal to tell whoever's singing it how it goes. That's usually my role is, idea, melody, come in, do the thing. I'll sing it down, or one of the other writers will sing it down, and then see where it goes from there.
And it's so one thing, I had this conversation with you probably 10 years ago, man, and you probably don't even remember it, but like when you,
I won't remember anything,
but like kind of when you were sort of first starting Tape Room, I really loved the mindset that you had with sort of, connecting with younger artists and up and coming artists and bringing them into a situation like Tape Room. So, and to me, this was a different mindset than I had heard when we were coming through Nashville. It's a different publisher mindset, I think, than was previously in place in Nashville. And now my perception of kind of what you guys are doing with Tape Room, you're taking an up and coming artist, bringing them into a pub deal, but you're also kind of developing their sound. You're developing their songs. You guys are able to release singles with these artists. Tell me a little bit about your thought process of, I know you always want to stay fresh and work with new artists who are coming in with fresh ideas. Tell me a little bit about your thought process with Tape Room.
Yeah, and I mean, and just to clarify, most of our guys are songwriters. You know what I mean? So whether it's a songwriter or an artist, it's the same thing. We're trying to help them find their sound and be very, I don't know, just really dig in all facets of their life and help them basically cut that 7-year time that it took me to have success. Try to trim that down a little bit if we can, just with some one-on-one training. It's like when athletes go into practice, but then they also have a hitting coach and a speed whatever, and they're getting physical therapy. We try to provide all those extra things that can get them where they want to be faster. So yeah, publishing and writing is usually separated, or historically, it's not like a writer signing other writers because that's basically your competition. But and there's a lot of them popping up now, a lot of new publishing companies because it sounds fun. It's really, really hard. I would not be doing it if it was like a cash grab on the side, a side hustle, but I always wanted to be both. So even coming up in Belmont stuff, I was like, shoot, should I be a writer? Should I be a publisher? And then, like I always do, which is dangerous, I'm always like, I'll just do it all, which is usually my answer is all of the above, And so I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. Now there's no reason anybody would sign with me until I had some success and they trusted my ears and my, coaching abilities. So as soon as I had a few of those and I got like a writer of the year and a couple things, then I definitely wanted to start, signing and developing writers, with Zach Crowell being the first one, who's had 1 million number ones and produced Sam Hunt and Cole Swindell and Dustin Lynch and everybody else, Jelly Roll. So I signed him, Matt Jenkins, and Jared Flowers were the first three, and they all were really successful. And, we just kind of did it. I did that in conjunction with like Combustion or Warner or whatever. I kind of just did it in my head and on my phone. But what I could bring, I realized I could bring something to the table that a normal publisher couldn't. Not that they can't critique your songs, but usually it's like, love this, man. You send in the song and it's like, I love this, or you get no response, which means, hey, this isn't that great.
Yeah.
But writers don't know why, especially if they think everything they're writing is great. In my mind, that doesn't really help. So I was seeing that a lot coming up, even to me, where I was like, this song isn't that good. Like, I wonder what's wrong with it. I wish somebody could help me. And then I just wanted to really step in, and it's not for everybody, right? I mean, if you ask Hunter Phelps or any of these guys, it's, I'm the opposite of that, saying like, oh my gosh, this is killer. It's going to be, number one, unless it is, So basically I'm just teaching those writers what matters, and not that I'm trying to teach them to do it like I do, because I want to sign people to do it differently than me. But they all kind of have a different thing, a different angle, a different strength, or weakness. So basically, just like a player coach, man, I just really like the idea of like, hey, I know the ins and outs of this. I may even know how some artists think or what they'll respond to, and I can help them. Like, kind of like you said earlier, I can help them distinguish between chasing a sound and trying something new, or like, who would record this? And after a few years of just doing tape room on my own and out here at the studio where I'm at right now, then we kind of started a more real employee like situation. I was like, all right, we need to take it up a notch. And we have Blaine Rhodes, has helped run this thing for the past several, 6-7 years. We had Kelly Bolton, who now does A&R out of LA for Warner. Caroline Hodson, who's a Belmont intern, hired, moved up the chain, which is, again, that works. That's what works the best. She stood out. We hired her, and she's now, really moved up to where she's basically, VP, second in command, does everything. She works like crazy. All the writers love her. And then we've got a couple other guys, Luke Collins, and then we've got Noel Peters working there too. So 4 employees. We've got 12 or 13 writers. Again, started out 1 employee, me, unpaid, still unpaid, and then 3 writers to kind of start it off. But it was just so fun to like. I'm inspired by hearing other people's songs, So I want to get on everything. I am very like, all right, let's do this thing. Let's conquer it. And so there's situations where like, all right, I don't have any songs, with Kane Brown for his next album, but Taylor Phillips has a lot, and they're better than whatever I could come up with. So that's awesome. We're kind of like, I can cheer that on, or I can pitch their songs to artists, and kind of without the mentality of like, hey, I wrote this, I'm amazing, listen to this. It's like, dude, you have to hear this song. I didn't even write this. My writers did, but you got to check this out. So I can pitch those easier. Blaine and Caroline do a great job, and we just try to really manage their calendars and put them in situations to succeed, so they can learn from me and I can learn from them. So it's a win-win. They're coming in green, kind of just like firing off at the hip. And, people like me that do it every day have to be careful. You never get in like a factory mindset of like, okay, here's a song. Thanks. Bye. And so the new writers we've signed have helped me, keep that fresh outlook. And then I'm learning about new artists. We might put them with new artists that maybe I don't have time to do sessions with, and stuff blows up. And I love writing with those guys. We'll do camps at the house. We have a lot of songs on the chart right now that's written. If they're written with me, it's also with a couple guys on my team, or some that are written by them that I'm not on, that we publish. So that's been amazing. I'm sorry, I could talk about that all day, but we're approaching hopefully 50 number ones, not counting me as a writer, but that my writers have written, and I'm more proud of that than, whatever numbers I get to eventually, because I love helping. I love seeing somebody's life change for the better. Not just financially, but just the confidence and seeing like, oh man, they're great now. They're going to beat me. So our goal is for all those guys to beat me at Writer of the Year and on the chart and all that stuff, which is, it's fun for them. It's not like I'm not jealous of them. I want them to crush it, So it's a really fun family vibe. So that, and those kind of situations are what new writers should look for. Just people that can help, besides, I mean, there's nothing wrong with a big major company or just getting a deal like I did. If you can just get a deal and quit, your real job, that's awesome. But eventually, if you can find somebody that will be honest with you, whether it's a friend or a coworker or whatever it is, or a publisher, about your songs, and help you know what's missing and why it's not as inspiring as it could be, that's priceless. Yeah. So we try to create that scenario. We're not perfect at it, but we try to do all we can.
Yeah, incredible. I love the approach you guys have, man, and I think it's awesome what you guys have been able to do. Listen, man, I know we're coming to the end of your time availability here. Sincerely
Oh, you're
So,
good. You asked me a couple more things. That's fun. It's fun to reminisce a
yeah,
little bit.
sincerely appreciate you jumping in, man. And doing this podcast with me, giving us some nuggets of wisdom here today, man. I guess let's kind of
Yeah.
wrap it up with, we, like I said, here at the studio, we work with a lot of independent artists, new, songwriters
Yeah.
who are really green. They're out there doing their thing, writing their songs, trying to get established. Uh, and I guess this is going to be a generalized question, man. I hope you can sort of narrow it down to one thing. But if there's one thing you could,
Sure.
if there's one thing you could tell a new songwriter or artist that's trying to establish themselves, what's one great piece of advice that you would give that person to get started in their career as a songwriter?
Well, no, number one, people, I mean, once you start trying to be an artist or songwriter, you're just pummeled with the feelings of like, there's too many of these. There's no way I can stand out. I can't do this. And I always like to start by telling people I had no hookup. Family was not musical. I didn't know anybody in town, and I didn't write with anybody. It's not like there's some magic secret. It's just trying to write great songs. And so if you're trying to be a writer, I really believe something will happen if you're great and you're getting better and you have a great work ethic and you're just a great person. People want to be around you. People forget how important that is. But if you can just, work on yourself and you know, your faith and the way your outlook on the world, if you're somebody that's fun to be around and stuff like that, then it'll serve you better, But if you're working on your craft and, then some stuff will work out, someone will sign you. Nashville's still looking for, maybe more than ever, everybody is for great country and all genre, Nashville, it's everything now. So just great writers, so you just have to ask yourself, what am I bringing to the table that's not already on the
Mm-hmm.
table? Because if you're doing something 20 other people are doing, it's going to be tougher than if you do something that stands out. And again, up to you how you do that. If the music is crazy or the ideas are amazing or you're a great lyricist or just like the vibe is just, a new thing that people haven't tried yet, anything like that, just figure out what you're bringing, to the potluck, that there's not going to be five of sitting there on the table.
Yeah.
And for up and coming artists, I mean, it's rough right now on the artist because used to, if you're a great singer and people saw potential in you, you would get a record deal and then they would develop you and figure out what you should do and kind of help you along the
Mm-hmm.
way. That comes way later in the process usually now. So it's almost like, oh, this person got a record deal after they blew up
Yeah.
online and already had people consuming their songs. So even with the same mentality for that, it's just like, okay, what are you putting out there? And why would anybody listen to that over something
Mm-hmm.
else? And you have to do a lot of self promotion now. I know that I'm not a fan of that, but like, what are you doing different? Are you just posting stuff like everybody else does? Are you posting a copy of something that's working? Or is your voice, how do you make yourself stand out? And I really do think those people have more of a shot than ever. If you look at Bailey Zimmerman coming up, or Nate Smith, or Shabuzi, or whatever it is, Post Malone, landing on country. There's so many different facets. People come out of nowhere. Zach Bryan, whatever that that kind of alt country strip thing where the sound can even be
Yeah.
raw. There's really not any excuse to be like, oh, if I only had access to a studio or I could pause this, everybody can get to a computer now and figure it out,
Yeah.
and it doesn't need to sound perfect. But if you're doing something different that stands out, people will hear it. And you also don't want a record deal right out of the gate now,
Mm-hmm.
usually. So it's almost on you to be like, you're trying to find your image, your lane. What are you bringing? Do you have a taste of rock in there that people are missing? Do you have a little taste of hip hop in there that people are missing? Are you an authentic country, very raw, old school kind of vibe that you think is missing right now? So it's just pushing to do that. And honestly, there's a little bit of fate, luck, God's favor or not your time right now, whatever to mix in. So it can definitely, doesn't happen for everybody, but the talented people I've seen, usually something happens, whether they're an artist and they end up deciding that's not for them and they become a
Mm-hmm.
writer only, or a writer who didn't realize how good their stuff was and they become an artist,
Yeah.
So it happens on all kinds of levels. And there's songs right now, Shabuzi's label, isn't one of those first labels you hear come to mind. The fact that Post Malone, who's, known for pop hits, is, in the top five. That Big Loud is crushing it as an independent label. That Drew Baldridge has a top 10 single, and it's just his label that he made up and got some promotion involved and just said, like, I'm going to do this myself. This is the song I want to put out. There's a lot of that going on. And then there's also some majors, still having success, obviously, but it comes in at so many different angles. And I love that it's not all about getting a number one song on the radio like I feel like it was. There's a lot of people, Zach Brown will never have a number one on the radio. plenty of people will never, have a number one on the radio or even a song that gets to a certain amount, but because they are doing something and they're hitting a spot that fans are missing or that they love, then they can end up touring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In any genre. You could be Van Camino or Alec Benjamin or Lizzie McAlpine or any, even in pop, it's like, all right, they may not have a huge taste of radio success. There's just not room for everybody, but they're still making a living at it and doing great. You know what I mean? And their fans love them. Same for in country. It's going to start being a little more like that, where there's some separation. When you ask, country people their favorite artists, it's not the top 5 most successful radio artists now. It's usually a combination. They love finding their own artists. Everybody has access to everything now. So, because of that, it's also very full. It's a full house out there. I forget how many trillion new songs come out a day. It didn't used to be like that. So it's more and more of a challenge as technology develops and as access is so easy to Instagram or to Spotify or whatever. With that ease of access, you got to just be thinking like, what am I doing? What am I trying to be? Who am I? How do I let them know who I am? What I want them to know about me. So I'm not an artist at all. That even that conversation freaks me out. But for any listeners that are trying to do that, it can happen. I mean, I've seen it completely change in the last 2 or 3 years, where Hardy, is screaming on stage and having country hits and rock hits. Morgan's doing whatever he wants. He's doing 808s and trap hats if he wants, and then he's doing a super country song after. He's singing the kind of blend of all the music I grew up on, and it's just really hitting home for a lot of people. He's making great choices with the songs and great singer. So there's so many different things that are hitting right now that it's wide open. That said, there's a lot of people in the pool, so like, what are you doing to kind of stand out? And hopefully something happens and your time comes and you get a feature or you get you get a break there, but it doesn't always have to be a huge number one hit radio song.
Yeah, for sure. The landscape is wide and vast and worldwide these days, and everybody has access to it as an artist. It's really crazy and really different than kind of the Nashville that you and I came through as college students. It's super 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 different and better in some ways too. So, but
and even the songwriter mentality, dude. Not to keep going, but the songwriter mentality is like, I'm trying to write songs that everybody in the world or America, it's just grown so much. It's like, what can we do that will cause somebody to want to stream this again when there's endless other options? So that's a tough, it's overwhelming as a songwriter. I feel like it didn't used to be like that. You're like, okay, I'm good. If I get a song on one of these 20 artists, I'll be good. There's just not a lot of free passes out there on radio now. And just like, you never know now, you know what I mean? I always encourage writers, like, instead of trying to go get a song recorded by whoever, name your favorite artist on the radio, then you may find that person at school or down the street or that you play ball with or whatever. And there's nothing stopping you from going and trying to make up some stuff in your dorm room or in a, whatever, singing in the closet or whatever it takes. If you've got something to say, then, let's hear it, and there's a lot of different degrees of success, and they all don't have to be selling out stadiums and having radio number ones. There's a lot of great artists, doing really, really, really well. All you got to do is put out stuff that enough people want to listen to.
For sure.
I mean, it's impossible, but it's also simpler, I think, than it used to be. It's harder, but it's also simpler.
For sure. So I don't know if you can answer this or not, but like, what do you got coming down in the future, in the pipe? Maybe something coming up for the rest of the year that you're pumped about. Anything you can give us an inside info about something that you're super pumped about coming up?
Yeah, we can on that. Yeah, there's I've got to say, with the post country album coming out in August, that was definitely one of my favorite projects I've ever worked on. Just really some great new relationships there, but that is going to be, I think, surprising to some people how country he's willing to go on some of those songs. And they're all not, he isn't somebody that's like, I want radio hits. He just wants to make up stuff that we think is cool and record it. So his process is really like, what's great? What do I want to do? So there's going to be a lot of different vibes on that album and a lot of features, really big bucket list features, classic performers that are joining them on there. So that project I'm really excited about. As always, whenever, I don't know what the next Morgan album looks like, but that's always, kind of the holy grail of Nashville as far as getting songs on there. He's trying some really different stuff, and even writing for him is fun because there's such a wide, range of stuff you can try. So always excited for his new thing. I don't know that, he's not finished with that by any means, but the post thing is really exciting. even like the Twister soundtrack that just featured a bunch of country songs. I have a song with Thomas Rhett, one with Bailey Zimmerman on there. That's a big thing for, Nashville for them to come to us for a soundtrack of a huge blockbuster movie. So that was something. I know that's out now. So, it's not up and coming because it just came out, but, I would say the most important thing I feel like I have going right now is a song that Jelly Roll just put out that I wrote, with him called I'm Not Okay. That was one of those songs, somebody like Jelly Roll, none of his songs are normal. The subject matter, the lyrics he says are not anything that sound like radio success by any means, but he's carved this lane where he can say stuff other people won't say, and he cares about people, and his fans, want to hear what he has to say. And so that song, when we wrote that, we're out on the road. I went on one bus trip with him, and we got a few songs, and that was one of them. I definitely didn't expect that to be a lead single or anything like that. And so that song, to be honest, I feel like that was a God-given moment. And the fact that everybody, when it made it through, they're just like, hey, people need to hear this, so we're just going to put this out as a single. Right. So that doesn't usually happen. That's a really wild turn of events there. And I just think, it's doing really well. And that message, I'm trying to get involved in some more mental health stuff, working closely with Belmont and some other organizations to just try to help writers, regardless if they've never had a hit, if they've had a billion hits. There are a lot of struggles. Mentally, there's a lot of ups. Ups are really high highs and really low lows. And we've had evidence of that, unfortunately, with, some bad things that have happened where it can just get you. And so I'm really focused on figuring out how I can bridge that song and whatever impact it has to like some more mentorship for these people. And besides just me walking through what cool chord formations are and what a good melody, sounds like, and different lyrics, I really want to help, new writers, old writers, in between writers with their mental state. Mine's not good. That's why we say I'm not okay. It's not like I got this figured out, do this, but we want to help, I want to help people, like myself, where it can be really overwhelming, and how to, I don't know, just help shine some light, teach some life, get them to really think about themselves and take that stuff seriously. So that's probably the thing I'm most excited about. There's some other cool songs on there that are very, very different that I can't wait for people to hear on the Jelly Roll project. So I'm excited to, they didn't need me for that. I'm just thankfully got to work with them a couple times, and the songs ended up being pretty important.
Fantastic. Well, man, once again, sincerely appreciate your time and jumping in on this podcast episode with us. I love everything you had to say. Great to get to talk to you again it's been a minute, but but man, we're gonna wrap up this episode of the Studio 101 Recording Podcast. Our guest this week was Mr. Ashley Gorley. And Ash, take care, man. Appreciate you coming in, and we will catch up with you soon.
Oh yeah, man. Good to talk to you. Thanks. It's wild, the full circle moment, man. From the dorms to, we're both doing music for a living. Can't complain.
Yes, sir.
So that's fun. Also, I think that's inspiring for people to hear. It can definitely work out. So yeah, man. Thanks.
Absolutely. Much love to all your crew and family, man.
Oh yeah. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
We're signing off. See you guys next time.